Welcome into the shed. This is a video I've wanted to do for a while, mainly because I wanted to get back into this box. When my pop passed away, there was a selection of tools and stuff that, like, my mum, who was looking after a lot of the packing up of his stuff, thought I might like. I know I had some uncles who went through his tools in his garage and that sort of stuff and grabbed things. Like, one of them got his drill press and that sort of stuff. I ended up getting his lathe because nobody wanted it, and one of my cousins actually tried selling it on eBay and there was no takers, and I said, look, I'll take it. Bench, lathe, all the things. So there's a stack of stuff I got, but this was one box that I got separate to all of that, which I got fairly early on. Now, I know that over the years I've had a few other things that have just been thrown into this box as I've moved from house to house to house, because my pop passed away, I think 2006. It just basically sat in sheds, in storage rooms, in whatever. It went down to our storage and I grabbed it while we were in lockdown when I did a run down to the storage and came back, just because I wanted to look at what was in here again, because I've got tools in here that maybe I should use them. A couple of books that belong to my pop, like a little book on cement carbides, because he was into being a machinist. Micrometers. This is the one I really want to get into. It's the book that goes with the lathe that I got from him. I think this was one of the reasons why I went and grabbed this box out of storage, because it was, I knew this book was in here. Oh wow, I forgot about this one. An old 45 record. Slim Dusty, the answer to the pub with no beer. How to run a lathe, from South Bend Lathe Works. There's also a decimal conversion table from when Australia went decimal. We moved from imperial to decimal, and this was a little table of all the conversions. I can't even see that print, it's so small. Only gives you the rough equivalence of what our decimal currency was compared to the old shillings, pounds, pence and all that sort of stuff, which I might go into a little bit deeper at another time. But this decimal conversion table, like, there's a little slot in the card, so you can slide the card up and down inside and work out what your decimal equivalents were. And a lot of my conversations with my pop were like this, without this, where we would have conversations and he would do it. I would say something in metric and he'd say something in imperial, and we'd go through. So this book looks good. It's actually got a history of the lathe and it shows a pole lathe. Yeah, I really should read this. Manual of lathe operations and machinist tables. Spiral bound with a nice little cover on it, even though this is in a little bit of tatters. Essential strength of materials. These were just some of his books that I grabbed. Engineering Science from 1946. One of Pop's old lanterns. I could really do with a bit of a restoration, wouldn't it? Here's a video idea. This stuff's been in this box for almost 20 years. This is the pencil box I made in year 7. I think it's a project that still gets made in high schools in year 7. Set of garage plans my grandfather gave me in case I wanted to build a garage. Of course, a flat skillion roof, simple car garage. Some of the stuff in here I think is stuff that my pop made, or his father made, or his grandfather made, because they were all into woodworking. This particular one, very common back in that sort of era. It's a fake book. You could put stuff inside it and put it away on your shelf. A small turned lidded box. A lot of this stuff just smells like Pop's house. I thought this was just the box. I remember always seeing very Art Deco-ish box that I think It's silky oak. I remember that. Silky oak was a very common weed timber in Sydney, and so lots of stuff was made in silky oak. My grandfather's bed, furniture, the dining table that I've got of his, this. It's just a lift top lid. Nothing fancy about the method that stays on. Inside, a set of theatre binoculars. I think these were my grandmother's, or my great-grandmother's. Antique lighter. I wonder if that'd ever work. Not that I need a lighter. I knew I had one of these of his. Still in the original box. Little cardboard box. Is that up the right way? Screw pitch gauge. I knew I had a screw pitch gauge from Grandma, from Pop. It is so rusty, oh my god. Little thing for those who don't know what a screw pitch gauge is, it's kind of as the name entails, it's a gauge for checking the pitch of a screw, with all sorts of little gauges in here. Oh, I completely forgot. I knew there was one of these around and I'd been looking and looking. I found another old one that I had, but I knew there was this one somewhere. This one here really needs to be re-glued. Little finger jointed box. This was made by my great-grandfather. Of course, I'm pretty sure like his initials. It's pretty dark in the timber. You might be able to just sort of see handwriting in underneath that. And these are dominoes. They're very rough cut. And they're ebony with ivory tops and a little pin in the middle that hold the two together. And then the numbers are basically created, the dots, by drilling through the ivory into the ebony. A fishing reel for hand casting. This was actually made by my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, because she had a lathe which she ended up giving to me as a kid. And I used it a few times, and then when I left school I didn't think I'd ever want to use a lathe again, and I sold it to my mate's little brother, who I remember him, and it was one of those, I can't remember the name of the brand, but it was one of those ones that was a lathe. It flipped up into a drill press. It had a table saw on it. It was like multiple tools in one. And I've heard people mention it on podcasts and stuff. Anyway, my great aunt made this on that lathe. Still a little bit rough. I'm not sure if she actually ever used it. I know I used it, but I took the line back off it. Back in the day, smoking was a thing. Again, silky oak. You can sort of just see actually see it in the unfinished part better. You can see all the medullary rays in the silky oak. Anyway, this was a cigarette dispensing box. My grandmother was a chronic smoker. My grandfather was a smoker when he was younger, and I think his father was as well. So they made this. See the inside's actually loose. You'd fill this with cigarettes and you can see the little slot at the bottom, and that would basically pull a single cigarette out. And this was sitting in their dining room for years and years and years that I remember. This is an old reel tape measure, like with the little pop out handle for winding it in and out. And this one, the reason I really love this one is, on one side you can see the old imperial measurements of inches, but on the opposite sides it measures in links. which I think comes from links in a chain on sailing ships. John Rabone and Sons, makers, Birmingham. That's what it just says on the back here. The link is obviously less than a foot. So that's the first of his tools that's in here. Little small hand rasp, which feels usable. There's a box in here that it's deteriorated, the top is coming off. A record, 043. Little rebate plane. And there's a couple of different profile cutters in there as well, so it's almost like a router plane. You could do grooves and that sort of stuff in it. I should put that with my planes, I'd probably use it. A small wooden block plane, which was probably his grandfather's, my great-great-grandfather. Bit rusty, but I could probably clean that up and oil the timber and have a nice working block plane. His chest drill. So if you twist this handle, it unlocks it so you can actually use it. And I think I remember putting the handle on this side so that I could pack it away, because it can be put into either side, and so can the actual crank handle. There's a crank here, and then you can put it on this side as well. And this bit here went against your chest, so you could hold it like this and drill with a bit of pressure behind you. Nice little keyless chuck. Which is still working nicely. IXION, if anybody knows about that. This one here, this was a grandfather's drafting set. I should really take this up into my study, clean it up, put it with my drafting things, because my grandfather was a draftsman by occupation and a metal worker by hobby. These are some of his scale rules. That's one. Another one that's in a very thin leather casing, which has probably gotten itself stuck inside it. Feels like it's gotten stuck right in the bottom of the packet. The rule is stuck to the leather on the inside because it's rusted as anything. I can barely make out any measurements on it. That's a definite restoration job. It's going to have to be done. This was my grandfather's. I want to try and take care of this stuff. It's been neglected for far too long. Another little leather case that has a little slide rule in it for his drafting. Very old cardboard box for his micrometer. He's going to be imperial, I'm sure. I can barely read these in this light. This looks bright, but it's not actually very bright. But very nice little micrometer set in a case that is actually broken. Switchblade still in the box. This one I believe was actually my pop's or his father's. This one was an antique store find. Little scale rule, obviously not as old, but this one would have been my great-grandfather's. An old wooden spirit level, because he was more of the builder than Pop. A big block plane, blade still in it, handle still secure. Bottom feels pretty good. Looks like silky oak. The Campbell plain. That's what it says there. My grandfather was into photography. Worked as a photographer for a bit. And this, oh gosh. Yeah, phone's up. I love this camera. I dare say there's probably little pinholes in that baffle. And who uses film photography now anyway? This is just one of those things that you hang on to because of who it belonged to and what that means to you. The straps had it. It's come off one side. And the last two things I can see in here, which I knew were around here and I was wanting to try and find to be able to take them out and use them. Two of my great-grandfather's spoke shaves. They're both, oh no, this one's a flat spoke shave for doing flat and external curves. And this one's a little convex base for doing internal curves and stuff. Tiny little blade. Obviously for very fine work. I need to find a better box for this stuff. And some of it needs to come out to actually get used. The spoke shaves. Maybe the plane, I don't know. This little work shed is not my forever shed. There are plans to actually be in a better shop than this at some stage. I don't really intend for this stuff to... Besides the fact there's nowhere to display stuff in here. It's too small. Oh, I forgot about this. Many years ago, they did a family reunion of everybody who were descendants of the Moore family, who came over as convicts in the early 1800s. And then when they were granted their freedom, they basically were given some land down by Campbelltown, in area now called Glenmore. As part of the reunion, every descendant got given a box of dirt from that home property piece of Glenmore. Anyway, I'm going to pack this box back up because I don't know what to do with it all right now. I hope you enjoyed this little venture into stuff of my pops. I'm going to say it's probably not the most exciting video, but I really wish that I knew a bit more of the history of some of these items, but there's not many relatives around who actually know any of it. I should just take his books up to the study now, shouldn't I? I'll take the books upstairs. Is that everything I got out? Geez, those books took up some space because now the box seems empty. Thank you for coming in this little journey through my grandfather's box of stuff. As you would have seen, there's a few items in here that are probably going to be some restoration projects because the state of that ruler was quite sad. Catch you on the next one.